Hey, you are now listening to the Graceway Podcast. Let's talk.
Hey, Graceway family, Pastor Tim here. Excited to do this Let's Talk podcast. Thank you to so many of you who have given us great feedback, who are tracking along. We appreciate it very much. I'm here with Pastor Todd. Genteman just preached an incredible message on joy in the context of Advent, so we're going to talk about it. Yep. Appreciate it today, man.
Of course.
Excellent. Yeah, appreciate you being here and doing this thing with. Let's just hop right into it.
Yes.
You started out talking about, you spent a little bit of time just on some cultural stuff and how the culture viewed shepherds. And then one of your first points was this idea that joy is for anybody. You harped on that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me just about why that was a big point for you to really kind of reiterate. What is it that you were kind of thinking about? Or maybe a better question would be why do people think joy isn't for them in your mind? I assume that's where you were going.
Yeah.
Maybe take it wherever you want.
Yeah, so I think kind of in my mind there's two audiences for this message. There's the shepherds, and then there's like Mary and the angels are the kind of characters in the story.
Yeah.
And the shepherds are first-time hearers.
Sure. Yeah.
Outcasts, looked down upon. I read somewhere where their work took them away from even like the temple rituals.
Yeah.
So like the religious leaders looked at them with disregard as well.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they would be the audience for the inauguration of Jesus is like, man, I think in this season too with Christmas, people who have not been in church or been estranged from church kind of can filter their way back for nostalgia, whatever reason. And so it's like, hey, you're in good company.
Yeah.
Like Jesus looks on you, with regard and is no respecter of persons. He's not viewing you the way that maybe that church person did or this situation happened. That's not a concern of his. And then for the other audience, folks that have been at church for a while, have been hearing, life has a way of stealing joy.
Yeah.
And so even if you've been around for a minute and maybe joy's been stolen, it's for you too. It's not just for new people, because we can sometimes overemphasize.
Yeah, that's right.
Get new people, and that's like the only job of the saint.
Yeah, that's right.
As opposed to also enjoying God. No, joy's for you too. So I like how it's for both audiences, the shepherd, angels, and Mary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. You spent some time, you kind of were unpacking the effects of darkness, right? It's terrifying. Told some, funny stories about looking under your car after you watched. I'm not a horror movie guy. I don't play with any of that stuff. I love it. Do you really still?
Yeah.
Do you really?
I do. My wife, when we were first married, my wife was away on like a business trip.
Yeah.
We lived in a second and third floor townhouse in an old neighborhood in St. Louis that had storm cellars.
Okay.
And a tornado was coming through. And it's back when you used to have those mobile hotspot.
Yeah.
You could plug it in. And so I went in the basement, the storm cellar basement, took my hotspot with me, and I watched a scary movie while I was down there.
See, that's your fault. Whatever
I know.
That's on you.
I was ready to meet Jesus, I guess. What I'm saying. But yeah, I enjoy the scary movies.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I would
make your judgments. I don't know.
No judgment, man.
Okay.
It's all good. I would ask you what's a good one, but no matter what you said, I'm not going to watch it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But you talked about the darkness being terrifying, all of these, this sense of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. But you also made this point about how we get used to the darkness. We get used to it. We wake up in the morning and all those kind of deals. We also do spiritually. Mm-hmm. Unpack that a little bit further, because you kind of juxtapose that to the angel says, hey, behold, look at me. And there's this comfort in the darkness that then as I'm trying to get my eyes onto Jesus, as you talked about. Number one, just talk a little bit first about kind of our level of comfort with darkness. How does that happen? Mm-hmm. And then give folks something different to look at. How how should people think about that if they can own? Yeah, that is where I am, but I don't know how to look at anything, and I don't know why I should look at anything different. Yeah,
I think when it comes to darkness, like, you know, theologically, I guess we're born into it.
sure, right.
So
There's a depth to our comfort with it that's pretty.
it's like an origin story. Like, so as I was born in the country, spent a lot of time in the city.
Yeah.
But I'm just as comfortable to go back to the country because I was raised in that, right?
Yeah.
And so we have a level of comfort with anything we're raised in, and so even a nostalgia. So even if we've been delivered from darkness to light, there's still a comfort level with it. Like, okay, well, at least I know what it's
familiarity.
Yeah, and so so there's we get comfortable with it because it's just we were born into it. We've walked in it for a long time. It's why whenever things aren't going our way or there's like the slightest crack in the foundation, we can run back there because it's maybe in that is like we forget that we can't fix our situation, or we can't just like generate hope on our own or joy on our own. So we go back to manufacturing happiness. If I can just remain happy doing these things that bring happiness, which are all circumstantial,
sure,
then I forget that I'm not really, there's really no joy there. What was the second part you said? That?
Well, you kind of went into the effect that the light would have been on their eyes, and that the angel kind of calls them to lock in on him. Like, look at me.
Yep.
I've got something to say to you. So, this is a big question, but how, when you're thinking about helping people getting their eyes onto Jesus, how do you think about that, especially for somebody who's feeling stuck or feeling like, man, I don't even know how to get out of this darkness thing?
Yeah, I think shameless plug, but I think that Growth Track, we talk about this.
Yeah.
We talk about where you're at in your story.
Yeah.
And I think there's a scale of faith. Like there's different steps you're on.
Yeah.
Not levels.
Yeah.
It's the same level.
Right.
It's just where you're at kind of in the process. And so when it comes to the light, like letting the light of joy in or looking to Jesus, I think with the same way our spiritual growth, if we look at the end or if we look at the most amount of light, it hurts your eyes. Like you can't look at it.
Yeah.
But if you like, okay, what's the next bit of light I can look to? So it's instead of saying like when you're stuck, you're looking how far away you are from the end and thinking I can never get there. Yeah,
that's good.
And God's like, no. Like the distance between you and the end isn't good news. Like I'm just going to take you to this very next place.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can, even in a place of being stuck, if we can get our eyes on what's the next step? Yeah. Not the end. Yeah. But just the next. Then we can begin to get our eyes onto Jesus and begin to get some joy because when you take just that next, it may be a micro step, right? Yeah. But when you do it, joy comes in. Yeah. Like joy is going to meet you in that step of faith because you are turning your eyes from the darkness to the light. And that's where the joy is found. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, instead of trying to take hops, just turn your head, just
a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so then you were talking about this news, right? That it's breaking news to the shepherds.
Yes.
And you spent some time talking about how for some of it's not breaking news anymore; it's old news.
Yep.
How do you think about keeping your faith, your enjoyment of God, your knowledge of God fresh, right? Because some of these things, they're familiar, but familiar and boring don't have to be the same thing.
Right.
But some of us in the familiarity, it's dull. It's not life-giving to us anymore. So talk a little bit just about
I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like, this, like, I kind of joked about it. I'm like, this message is, I'm glad y'all get something out of it. I need this.
Yeah, right,
and I think that, so for me, it's like real practical with I've been a believer since I was 8 years old.
Okay.
I've been in church ministry for 20 years.
Right.
And so I'm definitely, if anybody is prone to getting bored with faith, I don't know what people think that pastors are just always excited about Jesus and faith, but it can become stale. And so I think just some practical things, maybe, like I was kind of Bible geeking out with you early in the week doing prep, because I was asking questions of the text.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't just reading it to get through it. I was like, okay, why the shepherds?
Yeah, right.
Or why does it matter that they're at night?
Yeah.
Like, you start asking some of these questions, and all of a sudden, God starts bringing some answers to you that apply.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for me.
Yeah.
So anybody can do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that keeping it as breaking news is like, God says his word's alive and active.
Yeah.
So if you approach it that it's like it's stale, you'll get how you approach it.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you approach it saying like, God, I expect you to do something with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask some questions that I need some answers to around your word. I think also, I was talking with one of our staff a couple weeks ago who had mentioned how God's provided for him in the past, but he wasn't hearing from God the same way he used to. And so we just had talked about, the time that he was hearing from God was times when he was dependent upon God. So I heard from God when I needed him to come through.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of walking in, like, he answered those prayers and I'm good. I'm comfortable. And so I'm just like, I had asked him, like, well, do you think that maybe God wants you to double down on the faith you used to have?
Yeah.
Like, okay, God, you did that. Can you do this? And just, have some vision for your life.
Yeah.
And then if you start doing that, if you start believing God for big things, he might just come through.
Yeah.
And that reinvigorates your faith, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think, as I'm listening to you talk, the easiest way for your faith to become dull is for you to be inappropriately certain, right? Obviously, there are things that we're certain about in Jesus, God's word, all of those kind of things. But sometimes we end up in this spot where we've heard it all, we think we've seen it all, we think we know it all. And that's death for a Christian.
Yep.
Curiosity is really the way to keep things fresh. Like, you're just asking really simple questions. Why shepherds? Why at night? Why'd angels show up in a ball of light? Like, dude could have just tiptoed up to him, and tapped him on the shoulder.
And all of it matters.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. It all matters.
Yeah.
So why does it matter to me?
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
How does God want this to mean something to me?
Yeah.
Because he does.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing of like, I'm getting excited talking to you about it, because I'm like, no, like, faith isn't just the ritual you go through at the church you attend.
Right.
It's like, no, it's for you.
Yeah.
And it's doing something. It's alive. And, I want to encourage myself to say, like, believe it. Yeah. Believe that it's doing something. Believe that it's working things out. Because it's real easy to go cynical.
Yeah, it
and
is.
Be like,
it is.
But for just personally, I feel like my cynicism is born out of a life that lacks request of God.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just like, if I just, like you said, if I'm like, this isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I can figure this out.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, well, I don't need God for anything.
That's right.
But when I'm like, no, I actually need God for a lot of things.
Yeah, that's right.
And one of them is just to be a joyful person. Then I need to ask him for that. I need to expect him to answer.
Yeah, towards you referenced cynicism. The most cynical Christians I know are the most certain Christians that I know.
Sure.
Right? They just have an answer to everything. It's normally quick, easy. It's normally a simplistic. The most lively, faithful, vibrant, freshest Christians that I know are always curious about, God, why'd you let this happen? Why'd you lead me into this? What are you trying to? It's not just about Bible study. It's about circumstances. It's about relationships, just the openness that God has plans and purposes. And that curiosity, at least for me, when I can live there, has allowed me to get to know and enjoy God at a much deeper level than at times where I felt like I had answers that God had to fit in those boxes, or you had to fit in those boxes. Right. Yeah. Okay, so then you go into this deal. You talk about how the shepherds essentially like ditch the sheep.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
In the moment, I'm like, what happened to the sheep?
Right. Yeah. Lost their business on the spot. Right. But you made this point about like they don't go home and get cleaned up to go see Jesus.
Yeah.
And we could go on and on and on about that. Not only, so here's where I'd like to go. Obviously, we want people outside of relationship with Jesus to just come right away. And most evangelicals are like, yes. But we end up not being very good at just coming to Jesus without getting cleaned up once we're Christians.
Yeah.
Like we kind of go back into it. And I expect you, you've heard people say the church is the only army that justifies shooting their own. Right. So not only do I say I come to Jesus dirty and by his grace he cleans me up, but then that kind of is out the door in my Christian life. And even if it's good for me, it's not good for you. Like I need you to pull it together. I need you to. Right. So talk a little bit. I take any of those paths. Jump on any of those ropes, and just talk through. Talk about coming to God quickly and authentically. Yeah. I'm realizing that whenever I'm in this chair, I ask like 87 questions.
Yeah.
Or this.
Yeah. So I there's lots of levels to go to on that. Yeah. So initially it's like, I think you asking the question makes me think about it in a different way, because initially I'm just like, for the new believer or the non-believer, just come, just come to Jesus. But then, so if by the grace of God, I'm living in such a way that feels clean.
Yes.
Like it's starting to like, okay, God, this thing's working. You're changing me. You're doing it. And then you come and you're like, man, I'm really struggling. I'm like, I'm just
getting
bringing
your shade over here.
I just got cleaned up.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to like embrace somebody who isn't as cleaned up as you.
Yeah.
Unless you remember who did the cleaning.
That's right.
I think of the woman with the issue of blood, who, has to cry out, unclean, unclean. Yeah. And anybody she touches also becomes unclean until she touches Jesus.
That's right.
And he's the only one that doesn't become unclean, it actually cleanses her.
That's right.
And I was like, think about that. Like, it's hard for me it's hard for me to accept your dirt and go to Jesus with my dirt when I think that I'm going to have to clean this up again.
Yeah.
I cleaned myself up the first time. Don't bring your stuff over here, because you know how much work it took me to get this cleaned up?
That's right.
And it's like, no, it didn't take you any work. Yeah. It takes understanding. Like the work, but the work to clean you up, that's on God. And so I think that we have difficulty in that because we forget who did the cleaning. And so I'm like, oh gosh, I got to walk through this mess with you because you think that you can clean somebody up. I do anyway. Yeah. I don't know about anybody else, but like, I'm like, oh man, this is going to take a while. Yeah. And I don't know if
yeah,
but it's taken, 20 plus years for me just to get where I can stand a little bit. Yeah. So I think that's it. One, it's hard to come to Jesus initially because you're like, I'm so dirty. How could he clean me up? But then once you've been cleaned up a little bit, you're like, don't get it on me. I'm like, I don't want your mess on me. I just got here.
Yeah.
So I just bought this outfit.
Yeah, you making that point on Baptism Sunday is poignant, right? Because baptisms, when in God's kindness, we've baptized a lot of people this year, and we'll baptize 150 people a year, and every time it feels like the first time to me. And the reason that I love it for multiple reasons, but one of the reasons that I love it is the purity of folks getting in. They're not dressed up. Their hair's not, done did right. Like there's an authenticity and a purity to it.
Yep.
you can't be put together when you're getting baptized. And if you were put together, it's going away very
immediately.
quickly. Yeah.
And you look even worse.
Yeah, you look even worse if you're trying to look, extra sexy, right?
Yep.
And the appropriate response to authentically surrendering and declaring the gospel is what we do, right? Like, the place goes crazy. And I desperately wish that we could just keep that moment with trajectory. It's so brutally, violently hard. The more blessed the church is, the more, discipleship and maturity oriented the church is, to live in that purity of welcome and of grace and of vulnerability and all of those kind of things. I mean, for me, it's the work of the church.
Right.
Trying to be in that space.
So this may be a little too geeky.
Let's do it.
But when you're saying that, I think of like kinetic and static energy.
Yeah.
Like
I'm disgusted with myself that I exactly know where you're going. But
let's just geek out together.
yeah, let's do it.
That it takes more force.
Yeah.
Kinetic energy is that to get something moving.
Yes.
Takes greater force than to keep it moving.
Right.
So there's it's kind of the nature. God created energy, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of the way that it works is like, to get you that first step of faith.
Yeah.
God's putting out a lot of energy to just get you dipped, get you in there, get you moving in the right direction.
Get you dipped.
And then it takes, it maybe not, your progress then may not be as violent or as, you can't maintain that energy. Right. Because, life is short, but it's long too.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's like, God's like, now I got you there. Now let me walk alongside of you and help and guide you in this. And static energies doesn't take as much energy to keep you moving. And it also deeper in the illustration, like when we stop it, it takes more to get going again.
It does.
The goal is like we talked about with the next step.
Yeah.
Like if you just keep taking any progress,
just lean forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad we have that moment on Kinetic.
We did it. Yeah. And I think also just, COVID, I think to have moments like that is a bit of that jolt, that gospel jolt as we're trying to process COVID. We weren't worshiping together for a long period of time. We weren't able to have those experiences. And so it's interesting, at least for me, when we had a lot of momentum around, baptizing people all the time and all that kind of thing, there was a fluidity to it. Now, I don't know, it feels kind of funny to me, but I if I could figure out a way pastorally to just keep us in that moment, because then you'll see people like 6 months later and they dress different, and it's like, no, I just but that's the beauty of the church. It's awesome. Okay, so I don't want to set any time records here. Two more things. Okay. Talk about stacking up joy.
Yeah.
Having some joy in reserve.
Yes.
Okay, so and I've said this to you before. I had a preaching mentor that he would always say, that's a great point, Pastor Tim, but how?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes joy feels like the joy cup has a hole in the bottom of it. Mm-hmm. And so how would you pastor people through hanging on to, it says Mary treasured it in her heart. She held on to it.
Yeah.
How would you kind of pastor people to do that so they can stack it up?
Yeah, I think just really practically, this maybe I have the email folder. Yeah. Where like encouragement or like really cool communication
Stories,
goes.
Communication,
yeah. I just file it away. And I do it with like sermon illustrations too, and ideas. I drop that in there. Yeah. I can come back to it when I'm dry.
Now, do you have a criticism folder when you're feeling yourself a little bit?
I burn all the criticism.
Trying to stack criticism, stacking joy.
There's always more of that coming. There's always room for criticism. So there's that. I think this I don't know, just really personally, I feel like we don't print pictures anymore. You just take it, you post it, you forget about it.
Yeah, that's right.
It goes into the abyss of your photo
iCloud.
app. You got to pay more for iCloud or buy a bigger iPhone. That's right. We don't delete photos; they're just there forever.
Yeah.
And I just capturing moments, and putting like those important things in a place where you can see them.
Yeah.
So, hanging photos on your walls of people that matter the most. I mean, I don't think that you have to there's this huge long process, because I think the things that bring the most joy are the simplest things.
Yeah.
It's the people you love. It's the people that have been a part of major moments in your life, major memories of, that professor in college that saw something in you didn't see, or the first boss you had that gave you an opportunity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
To say instead of it just being a memory that maybe in your brain, maybe not, like maybe if you put it on display, had it in front of you, then those are just some real practical ways to stack up some joy. Because I mean, what we do with our money is if you're stacking it, you're investing it somewhere.
Yeah.
And you go, maybe I'm just the only person that does this. I want to see the account. How much is in there? You know what I'm saying? Like you go back, like, okay, whew, still there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into good investments grow.
Yeah. Right.
So over time, the joy you have in something may actually increase.
Yeah, that's right.
So I put it there.
Yeah.
That's my joy savings account.
Yeah.
And I come back. I want to see, is there more joy there? Has it grown? So I think that's just a really simple thing. Is like, man, when people send you cards, find a shoebox, put it in there.
Yeah.
People send you an encouraging email, either put it in a file or print it off and put it in the same shoebox. But just have a collection of when you're feeling low, read what's true. Like when the lie of the enemy comes in and to steal your joy, go back to what's true.
Yeah, it's good.
And
I think that we're in such a instant and transactional culture that we don't have any depth. Lots of width, right? I got whatever, 3,500 Facebook friends. Haven't talked to, 3,499 of them. And so I think when you think about investment, you're thinking about depth and tenure.
Yeah.
And investing in relationships that are that. I have a friend who has been a buddy of mine for, I met him when 3 days after his firstborn was born in the Philippines. And he just moved to Kansas City. And I've been knowing him, as the kids say, for a couple decades now. And just this past Friday, my son had a game in Springfield, Missouri, and my buddy and I drove down, and didn't talk about anything. Like there was nothing,
right?
But just the depth of an imperfect but life-giving relationship was brought an enormous amount. And I'm going to watch my boy. We're going to watch my boy. So there's this generational piece to it for me. It was so good.
Yeah, I think. It's not so much like cancel culture or whatever.
Right.
But I think that we throw people away too easily now.
Yes. Sometimes just not for any reason, just seeing heaven kind of stuff.
Yeah, we throw people away because, the thing that was great didn't end as great as it should have. Right. It's like, I can't, be around you or whatever. We throw people away. And because there's always new people.
Yeah, that's right.
You never have to return to what's been cast aside.
That's right.
But if we would just provide people some space to become different or step into what God's calling them to do.
That's right.
And then revisit, because by that time you've changed and grown too.
Yeah, you're different too, sis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now there's some appreciation and some celebration. So it's just not everybody is for every season.
Yeah.
And being okay with that and being like, you know what, I'm going to, instead of throwing people away, I'm just going to let it marinate for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And see if I can't come back to this in a little bit and see if it's gotten better.
Yeah, that's right. All right, last one. So obviously we're around Christmas. Joy's on all the cards, on all the TV.
Yes.
We're all so joyful. Everyone's so joyful, right? And then no one is.
Yeah.
So just let's close with this. Just give me a couple practical. Hey, Pastor Todd, you preached on joy. I want it. It's all around me. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
How can I lay hold to, some of what you taught today in a practical way?
Yeah. So I think end of the year stuff is really great.
Yeah.
So like, hey, what's 3 things that God did in my life this year? Make 3 things that God did for you. Like, don't
not through you, not
You just like, hey, what did God do for me specifically? Just some 3 things. Maybe a mindset change. Maybe it's a positional change. Whatever. And then just write down some things that you can bless the Lord for. Mm-hmm. Like, what are some things that I'm glad for? Yeah. I mean, we spend a lot of time thinking about things that frustrate us. Yeah. Things that somebody said something wrong to me. Right. And our minds work that way. Yeah. Our minds like lean towards the negative. It's like, okay, we'll be intentional about some positive stuff. I'm talking to myself in this. I'm like, no, let me do inventory of what God's done this year. And then as I do that, as I get my eyes onto Jesus, just see if some joy won't follow it.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Okay. There you have it. We appreciate you connecting with us. If you haven't watched Pastor Todd's message, you can go to visitgraceway.org. All of the social media, Facebook, Instagram are probably your best spots. But if we can serve you in any way, pray for you, bless you in any way, hope that you'll let us know. Until then, have a wonderful week. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning into the Graceway Experience. Hope we can talk again sometime.